Hi, my name is Sebastian Glab and I am a cloud architect at CloudCasa by Catalogic Software. In this video, I'm going to show you how fast and easy it is to migrate your existing AKS cluster nodes to Azure Linux. But before we start, let's quickly check the key benefits. First of all, Azure Linux stands out for its small and lightweight design. It includes only the necessary set of packages, ensuring faster cluster operations and optimal resource usage. Another benefit is a secure supply chain. Microsoft teams follow a strict supply chain process, subjecting container host packages to rigorous testing. This ensures a secure environment, minimizing the risk of any disruptive updates and prioritizing stability for your applications. Azure Linux also places a strong emphasis on security with a secure by default approach, featuring a hardened Linux kernel with Azure optimizations. Monthly security patches and rapid deployment of any critical updates, coupled with compliance with CIS Level 1 benchmarks, make Azure Linux a secure foundation for AKS. Azure Linux ensures smooth integration with your existing workloads, whether it's AKS extensions, add-ons, or open source projects. By shipping with Containerd as its runtime and the upstream Linux kernel, Azure Linux guarantees that your current containers will operate seamlessly within the Azure Linux environment. So let me first show you my environment. So in Azure Portal, I have this one Ubuntu cluster. And if I go to node pools, you can see here that I have two node pools running with Ubuntu Linux. You can see very small node pools. And on this cluster, I have deployed a very simple application, just a to-do application with MySQL database. And my goal is to migrate this cluster to a new cluster with Azure Linux. So in order to do that, I will go to CloudCasa portal and I will start by adding a new cloud account. So I will go to configuration, cloud accounts, add cloud account, Microsoft Azure. Let's give it a name, so let's call it demo Azure account. And let's click register. Now let's deploy to Azure. So what it will do, it will open up a Azure portal with a template deployment. So this is a Azure Lighthouse template that allows CloudCasa to access Kubernetes clusters and also other infrastructure like virtual networks to back them up. So I will click create. That will start the deployment. And in a minute or two, I will see that the deployment is complete. So you can see that my deployment is now complete. So if I go back to CloudCasa portal, I can see my cloud account is marked as active. It's over here. So let's click it. And here's our cluster that I showed you before. So let me install CloudCasa agent on it. So I will go to actions, install. And here I have a few options that I can select. I can go with automatic installation. I can use kubectl or any other that is presented here. So since automatic agent installation is present, I will use that. So let me click install. And what it will do, it will connect to the AKS cluster and it will deploy a CloudCasa agent. This agent is very lightweight. It's just one deployment with two pods. That run on your cluster. So CloudCasa agent is now installed. So let me close this. And now I will go ahead and define a backup. So in cluster details, I will click define backup. Now I can select what do I want to backup. I can go with a full cluster or just select some of the namespaces. And in my case, I want to migrate my application to the new cluster. So I will select that. If I want to, I can even go more granular and select different resource types within the namespace. But in my case, I want to migrate the whole namespace. So include persistent volumes is enabled, and I want to use snapshot and copy. So here we first take a snapshot, we mount this snapshot, and then we copy the data over to the object store. So I will use that. Go next. Here we have app hooks, and app hooks basically allow you to ensure that stateful applications like databases are in proper state to be backed up by executing a pre-backup and post-backup commands. So in my case, as you remember, I have a MySQL database. So I will add a pre-backup hook for that namespace, and I will select app hooks from templates because CloudCasa comes with app hooks for the most common databases. And in my case, MySQL and post backup will be selected automatically. I will go next. Policy, I will just run this backup once, so none. And summary, so let's call it Ubuntu cluster backup. And now let's click create and run. So in a few seconds, you will see on the top right corner a pop-up that the backup job started. So you can see it right over here. So if I go now to the dashboard, in the activity section, you can see the backup running over here. So let me click on that. Let me close this, go to activity log, and you can see everything that is happening right now. So you can see that first we run inventory of that Azure account. We do so to make sure we have the latest configuration of the AKS clusters, as well as the other infrastructure like public IP addresses or virtual networks. And you can see the progress and monitor it over here. So once the backup is done, I'll be back. So as you can see, the backup completed. So let's go ahead and define a restore. So under actions, select restore, select the recovery point, go next, select resources. So that is almost the exact same screen as we've seen in the backup definition process. So I will restore all the protected namespaces, go next, destination. So here you want to select create new cluster and AKS cluster. So here you can see that the demo Azure account that we created was selected automatically because I have only one Azure account. However, if I had many, I could select any of them and perform even a cross Azure account migration. But now I will use the default one, go next, provide here AKS options. So first cluster name, let's call it Azure Linux cluster. Go next. So you can see that some of the fields are pre-filled based on the backup values. So resource group and region, of course, I can change them, but I will leave them as default for this demo. Kubernetes version, I will go with 1.27.7. And now we need to provide client ID and client secret. So let me first provide client ID and now client secret. So over here and go next. Networking, I will leave it as KubeNet since this is a very simple cluster. Go next. And here we have the node pool. So you can see the values at the backup time. So now I can customize them and I can change the operating system from Ubuntu to Azure Linux in both of them. Of course, if needed, I can even modify the node pools even more, customize worker nodes, add more node pools if needed. But for this demo, I will just change the operating system on both of them. So go next, cluster add-ons. I'm not interested in any of them. Restore transforms, I will rename namespace. So I will rename the to-do app to, let's call it Azure Linux to-do app. And change storage classes. I don't need this option, but this is extremely handy when you want to change storage class as well. So for example, you want to switch from Azure Disk to Azure Container Storage, for example. Or if you're migrating from on-prem to Azure, AWS to Azure, Google to Azure, you want to change storage classes, right? But in my case, I don't need that. So I will keep this option disabled, and the rest too, I will keep disabled as well. App hooks, same concept as we've seen in the backup, but for restore. So here, there's nothing I need to do. So go next, summary, and let's give the restore a name. So let's call it, let's call maybe Ubuntu to Azure Linux migration. And let's click restore. So again, in a few seconds, you will see a confirmation in the top right corner. And in a few seconds, you will also see a new entry in the activity tab. So if I click on that and go to activity log, you can see what's happening. So the first step is to create a new cluster with Azure Linux nodes. And then what we will do, we will install our agent and migrate the data that we backed up. So the restore job was successful. So let's close this and let's go to Azure portal. So if I refresh, you can see our Azure Linux cluster over here. So let me open it up. And if I go to node pools, here we should see 2 nodes pools running Azure Linux. So you see the migration was successful. So let's now check if the app is working correctly. So let me connect to that cluster quickly. I will open it in a Cloud Shell. And we will see what's the IP address of the new service, and we'll see if we still see the same tasks as we saw on a source cluster. So kubectl get namespaces. So we should see the new namespace over here. Let's check the pods and services inside that namespace. So all the pods are running. We have the external IP. So let's copy and let's open it up. So, right, you can see, let me just move it over here. You can see the app is running in the Azure Linux to-do app namespace, which is correct. And we see the list of 5 tasks. This is the same list as we backed it up on the source cluster. You can see the difference in the IP address as well as the namespace if I switch between the tabs. So, as we conclude, the migration process to Azure Linux is quick and user-friendly, especially with the assistance of CloudCasa. It's a swift transition, allowing you to smoothly tap into the potential of Azure Linux. So, thank you for watching.